listening to Sidewalk Confessionals. My name is Jeremy. I'm alone today. Caleb couldn't join me today, unfortunately, and all of my other friends are off doing other things. So it's just us. It's just you and me, and I'm going to go through a little list that I put together. This is a list of things worth knowing. So the title of this podcast is "It's Worth Knowing." So I'm just going to list off things that I think are worth knowing. This stuff is 100% my opinion. If you don't agree, that's fine. If you do agree, that's fantastic. But yeah, let's get into it. So the first thing is people worth knowing. I have three people in particular that I think are really worth knowing. Adam Savage, Casey Neistat, and Peter McKinnon. I know all three of these people are super, super popular on YouTube and in all of the social medias. But yeah, Adam Savage has served as a very large inspiration for me as a maker for pretty much as long as I have been a maker or considered myself a maker. Just because of the way, kind of his philosophy about making, it's that you don't need a lot of tools, you don't need a lot of materials, you don't need a lot of experience or any experience at all to just start making something. One thing that he references all the time that I've now started referencing is that all you need is corrugated cardboard and masking tape to make anything that you want to make, at least a prototype of what you want to make. I have literally used nothing more than masking tape and corrugated cardboard to prototype things that I want to build before I go and buy the materials, just because the materials are more expensive, obviously, because, corrugated cardboard is just something that you throw away every day. So yeah, Adam Savage is extremely influential to me in that sense. Casey Neistat is another one. He talks a lot about constantly talks about, and not only does he talk about this, but he also puts it into practice every single day, which is to not just talk about things. Don't be passive, be active. Don't say, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go do that, and then I'm going to do this. Say, I'm doing this, I did that, that sort of thing. He is all about, if you have an idea, if you want to be a content creator, anything like that, just go get started doing it, because it's not going to happen unless you do it, and no one's going to do it for you. So he's extremely influential in that way. And then Peter McKinnon, because one, he's an amazing photographer. He's an amazing videographer in my opinion. And his tutorial videos on his channel are absolutely phenomenal. I would be completely lost as far as Adobe Premiere Pro if not for Peter McKinnon's videos. He's made me way more efficient using Photoshop, way more efficient at using Premiere, way more efficient at using Media Encoder and Lightroom. And none of that would have happened probably if there wasn't someone making videos as fluid and efficient and at the same time packed with useful information as Peter McKinnon's videos. But then there's some types of people that I think that everyone should know. A doctor or another medical professional. Those kind of people are really, really, I don't want to say useful, but they are. They're useful. It's useful to know a medical professional, whether it be a doctor or a registered nurse or an EMT, anything like this. Just because, the main way anyone, let's be honest, the main way most people are finding out or kind of, learning about medical disorders or anything, sicknesses, all of this stuff, is on the internet. And the internet is a nebulous place. It is so easy to be like, oh, I have these symptoms, and you go type it into WebMD, and the first thing that pops up is cancer. And then you go make a doctor's appointment, and if you don't have insurance, that obviously costs you a lot of money. So it's nice to have a medical professional, that you can just talk to, like as a friend. Just be like, hey, I've been feeling sick the past couple days. These are my symptoms, blah, 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 blah. And they could be like, well, it's probably not cancer. You probably just have the flu. So yeah, it's super, super useful to know that. Photographer or a videographer, these people are extremely inspirational. Anyone who does videography, anyone who does photography, in my experience at least, these people are super, super willing to help in any way that they can if you want to get into something like this. And they're just cool people to talk to in general. I mean, have you ever talked to a photographer? Like, no one has ever talked to a photographer and been like, man, I really wish I hadn't talked to that photographer. That guy was an asshole. No, they're super helpful. I think that's anyone who's passionate about the trade that they're in. Yeah, they're super helpful. A chef, and I put this here because everyone should know how to cook. And it's nice to hang out with a chef, or, just talk to a chef. One of your friends be a chef and just like come over and everyone, go to a house party at a chef's house. You learn how to cook and you eat some amazing food, and typically chefs like to drink a lot. So it's just fun. A contractor, electrician, or other tradesman. This is more for the practical side. I mean, it's obviously nice if one of these people is your friends because friends are awesome. But yeah, it's nice to have an someone in the trades as a friend, just so you can get a sense of, what it's like to be in a trade or anything like that. Plus the skills are super, super useful, which leads to skills worth knowing. First and foremost, how to sew. I think that this is extremely important because you can't always be relying on the department store if you tear some of your clothing or something like that. If you rip a stitch on your favorite sweater or something like that, what happens if they don't sell the sweater anymore? You got to fix your favorite sweater. If you don't know how to sew, then your favorite sweater is just going to sit in a corner ruined, but you can't throw it away because it's your favorite sweater, and you can't just buy another one because they don't make it anymore. So learn how to sew and you can fix your favorite sweater. And then that just goes back into that whole making thing. It's like, it's even better when you fix your favorite sweater because that makes it like more yours. Like, your sweater has stitching that you put into it that no one else, even if they have the same exact sweater, no one else actually has the same exact sweater because no one else has that stitching that you put into your sweater. And for other more practical reasons, obviously, I mean, if you know how to sew, you can fix things in a pinch, things like that. Also, if you know how to sew, you technically know how to put in simple sutures if you can't get to a hospital. Everyone should know how to cook. I've talked about this with my brother, actually a couple episodes ago, episode 13, I believe. We talked about how to cook an egg. I think it's extremely important that everyone know how to cook at least the most basic of meals. You can't be relying on fast food all the time. You can't be relying on frozen food all the time. Because there's no certainty that, one, you're always going to be able to afford to eat out all the time. And two, there's no certainty that those things are always going to be available. But the things that you need to cook the most basic meals will always be available to you, especially if you go even a step farther and learn how to forage for your own food or raise your own food. Obviously, that's getting more into prepper kind of stuff and a little bit more extreme, but the reasoning still stands. Everyone should know how to cook at least the most basic of meals. That's something that I'm pretty passionate about. Basic mechanical skills. What happens if your car breaks down? Or you need to change a tire or something like that. Everyone should have very, very simple. Obviously, not everyone, I'm not saying that everyone needs to go out and become a great chef or become a great seamstress, whatever. Or everyone needs to come out or go out and be a mechanic. But you should at least know, the basics. How do you change the oil on your car? How do you change a tire? Change spark plugs, spark plug wires, all of that sort of stuff. Just the super simple stuff. Basically, like any car part that you can get at AutoZone off the shelf. You should know it's worth knowing how to install that, replace that on your car or your lawnmower or whatever. Basic first aid. This one's obvious. People hurt themselves all the time. I know all of you guys hurt yourselves all the time, even if it's little stuff, little cuts and scrapes. I'm a maker, so I'm constantly getting little cuts and abrasions on my hands. And more than a few times I've really cut myself, and it's just like it's bleeding a lot and all that sort of thing. So it's worth knowing just the most basic of first aid. I've gone a step farther. I know how to numb an area with something like lidocaine. I know how to put in sutures. Obviously, I'm not going to do that to myself if I have access to an ER, because I'd rather just let a trained medical professional do that for me. But in a pinch, I know how to do that. I know how to close up minor wounds. These are all things that are super, super useful. How to stabilize someone who's having a seizure. And it becomes even more important to know these things if you live in larger cities, because you are just around more people. And that, statistically speaking, the likelihood of having to use these things, or it being useful to know these things, it just becomes more and more likely. So basic first aid is, I think, super, super important to know. Basic home repair skills. If you make a hole in your drywall, if the threshold at the bottom of your door starts coming off, if your hardwood flooring is sliding around all over the place. Doors on newer houses, new construction houses, as these things age, even old houses, although typically older houses have settled and don't need these kind of repairs as often. But on new houses, doors need to be shimmed quite frequently, because the house sags as everything ages and kind of settles together. And then the door will actually fit crooked in the jamb. And then you'll have a big gap on the bottom and a little gap on the top, and it'll fit weird and it won't close right. All of these things, these are all worth knowing. You can learn how to do literally all of this stuff on YouTube. You can learn how to do all of this stuff if you have a friend who's a contractor. These things kind of go together. You should know a contractor, and that will in turn help you gather the knowledge to make simple home repairs. But yeah, all these things super, super useful. As along with home repairs, you shouldn't be afraid to do electrical work in your own house. You should get a good multimeter. Fluke makes really great multimeters. They make great consumer multimeters for like $100 and something bucks. And you may be thinking, oh, that's a lot for a tool that I'm going to use only once or twice ever. But if you are tackling some kind of electrical work in your own home and you've never done it before, you want to be spending the $100 on a multimeter that you are 100% sure is going to give you a good, an accurate reading, because you want to be making sure that the circuit that you're working on is dead. Otherwise, you'll be dead, potentially. Fluke makes great meters. But yeah, you are allowed to do electrical work on your own home. There's this stigma about working with electricity. Oh, it's super, super dangerous. And that's true. But if you go to your breaker panel or your fuse box, whatever, pull out the fuse or flip the breaker off, make sure that the circuit's dead with a good multimeter, then you're fine. Just look up how to do what you're doing in the NEC. I'm not sitting here telling anyone how to do anything. I'm just telling you that you can, in fact, do your own electrical work on your own house. The National Electrical Code is free, or at least the digital copy of it is free. Anyone can access it for free. If you want to buy a hard copy of it, it is rather expensive because it's basically a textbook. But read through it. It defines how to do literally everything. Or if you're a visual learner, look at how the last electrician installed that light switch and just do exactly the same thing. Or don't listen to me. But yeah, these are things that you can do yourself and that you should know how to do. So I mentioned Fluke, which is a brand of multimeter. I just have a large list of brands worth knowing. These are brands that I really, really like. Peak Design, they make all of my camera straps. I actually have one right here. You can't see it if you're just listening to this, but if you're watching the video part of this podcast, it's this gray strap. I can't remember what this is called. I think this is the Peak Design Sling. I use this on my Sony camera just because their bigger strap is way too big for the small mirrorless camera. But yeah, I love their stuff. I love the Peak Design Capture Clip. That thing is amazing. I have it on the strap of my backpack. So whenever I go backpacking, I can have my camera right there. And I use the sling to actually act as like a safety mechanism, so that if I dropped the camera, the sling would catch it before it hit the ground. So yeah, Peak Design, absolutely excellent brand. Anchor is another one. The camera is actually recording the video portion of this, and it doesn't have a battery in it. It's powered off of an Anchor multi-charger. Anchor is a great company. They make USB hubs. They make portable batteries, or what are they called? Portable chargers. The little battery pack things. They make multi-chargers. They make all kinds of excellent stuff. Sony. I use Sony's mirrorless camera. Sony also makes some great softwares. They make all kinds of really good stuff. There was something else from Sony that I was thinking about that I can't remember now, but yeah, Sony is an absolutely great company. Hilti, if you are looking for tools, especially like drills and impact drivers, things like that, Hilti is a little bit pricey, but their tools are absolutely fucking bulletproof. Starrett, again, if you're looking for really good bulletproof tools, Starrett is awesome. Starrett makes great calipers. They make great drill bits, all of those sorts of things. Lincoln Electric, again, more tools. If you're getting into welding and stuff like that, and you think that it's going to be something that you're going to want to invest a lot of time learning and invest a lot of money into, or not really money, but if you think it's going to be something that is important, in your making, then Lincoln Electric is an absolutely great company. Miller is also really, really good. I would say Miller and Lincoln Electric, at least in my opinion, are around the same tier. There's going to be a lot of controversy about that, but Lincoln Electric, Miller, these companies, they're really great. They make really, really awesome welding equipment. Going in a little bit of a different direction, Timbuk2 is another brand that I really like, spelled with a 2, like the number 2. I'll put links to all of these things on the write-up on my website, but Timbuk2 makes the backpack that I use if I'm going to be like just walking around doing a photo shoot, throw all my camera batteries in there, throw extra camera gear in there. I can fit my tripod in there. The one that I have has a dedicated sleeve for my laptop, throw my portable charger and all that kind of stuff in there. And when I actually take the podcast on the road, last episode, you guys will know I didn't record in my studio. I recorded it at my friend Dylan's house, and I actually threw all of the delicate stuff, my laptop included, I threw all of the delicate stuff into the Timbuk2 backpack and then put the Timbuk2 into my modified suitcase, which I modified a suitcase into a flight case. So yeah, I put that into the flight case and strapped it down, and everything was perfectly fine. So that backpack is wonderful, and I love that brand. Singer, if you want to get into sewing, Singer makes great sewing machines. They make great scissors. They make great other things, measuring tools, all that sort of stuff. Singer's a really old brand. and their older stuff, especially like their older scissors and stuff like that, are absolutely fantastic. You would be amazed how difficult it is to find a good pair of fabric scissors. Big Agnes, if you want to get into like backpacking stuff, my tent is made by Big Agnes. My sleeping pad is made by Big Agnes. And they make a lot of other stuff. They're an absolutely excellent brand. Some of their stuff can be a little bit pricey. My tent was almost $300 for a 2-person tent, which is ridiculous, but it's also a really, really lightweight and durable tent. So Big Agnes is a really great company. You don't have to spend that much, but they are really, really great. Black Diamond, if you're into climbing, if you're into camping, if you need a headlamp, Black Diamond and Petzl. Petzl's more for climbing and that sort of stuff, but Black Diamond and Petzl got you if you need harnesses, if you need ropes, if you need quick draws, carabiners, any of that sort of climbing gear. I don't know if Black Diamond makes crash pads, but I know Petzl does make some really big crash pads. So if you're worried, if you're new to like outdoor bouldering and stuff like that, Petzl makes really big cushiony crash pads. So yeah, those are a couple brands that I really, really enjoy. And of course, I'm not affiliated with or sponsored by any of those brands. All of this stuff is just my opinion, and these things will probably change over time as I get more experience with all of those sorts of things. But yeah, and now like some music worth listening to. These are again all my opinion. Obviously, you and I are not going to have exactly the same taste in music, and that's fine. I just think that this is a good mix of music, at least that I really, really like listening to. I would actually really, really love to hear your guys' suggestions in the YouTube comments. If you watch the YouTube version of this video, or just go over to YouTube, put down in the YouTube comments music that you really think that I should listen to. Because I'd love to hear that sort of stuff. But here's a couple of mine. Maroon 5, particularly like their first album, that's like super vibey, super nostalgic to me. I've talked about that before on the podcast, but I really like that sort of stuff. Hippocampus, hippo and campus are two separate words. Their song Tuesday is actually the reason I post this podcast on Tuesday. There's a little write-up, tiny little write-up about that on the podcast page of the website. But yeah, they make really, really great music. They're like indie folk music, kinda. Not really folk, but they're just really chill indie music. 21 Pilots, my favorite album by them is Vessel, but all of their stuff is absolutely excellent. It's very, you gotta listen to like, especially a really good song by them, you gotta listen to it a couple times, because there's just so much like depth to the lyrics in their songs. It's fantastic. Alabama Shakes is a band that I have gotten into recently. They're kind of not really folk. I don't know. They definitely have a country vibe going on. They're really freaking good. Cage the Elephant is another one. Cage the Elephant is absolutely excellent. I can listen to Cage the Elephant all day, every day, and I pretty much do. Sylvan Esso, if you want something a little bit more electronic, but still kind of an indie vibe. Sylvan Esso is great. There's the lead singer Amelia Meath is an absolutely excellent vocalist, and her dancing is wonderful. It's hilarious to watch her dance. And then is it Nick Sanborn is the other member of Sylvan Esso. He's the one who puts together all the beats, all of that sort of stuff, and he's brilliant. He is a wizard with an audio workstation. It's fantastic to listen to that kind of music. Eric Church, yes, I do enjoy country music every now and then. Eric Church is absolutely excellent. He's my favorite country singer. something about his voice, something about the way he sings it's really, I don't know. I really, really like the way he sings. Not so much what he's singing about, although he doesn't really sing about anything like super controversial, super weird. And I do actually really, really enjoy the points that he's trying to make while he's singing, and what the songs are about. But just the way he sings, I really like, and just the way the music is composed. Eli Young Band is also a really, really good country band. If you want to listen to some country music and you haven't listened to Eli Young, I would definitely suggest you give them a listen. I think that's the shortest podcast we've ever done. That was just a lot of really, really fast spitballing list kind of stuff. Oh, so from last episode, we didn't do a something random because I forgot. Dylan and Hunter didn't have a something random, say something random planned, which is kind of the point of say something random. But they couldn't think of anything, and I forgot what I was going to say. But Hunter said something. Maybe I'll insert the audio clip into here. That'd be kind of meta, wouldn't it?
That grinder almost killed you.
That's a story for another time.
Yeah,
I'll tell that at the end. Actually, that'll be my something random. Hunter said something about an angle grinder almost killing me, and I was talking about blacksmithing stuff. So a while ago, this was years ago when I lived in, I used to live in Wilmington, North Carolina. I was using an angle grinder to grind down the top of a piece of railroad track. Because if you don't know, the cap, it's called, of railroad track is not flat on top. It's rounded. Oh, geez. It's rounded on top. So in order to make a good anvil, it has to be flat. So I was grinding it flat, and it was taking forever. So I got impatient, and I was like, you know what? Screw this. I have a better way to do this. And I put a cutoff disc. Some of you guys already know where this is going. I put a cutoff wheel on the angle grinder, and I tried to just cut the very top section of the cap off. And what happened was I got the disc deep enough into the material that I tilted the angle grinder a little bit, and the disc grabbed. The material pinched the disc, and this angle grinder threw itself backwards out of my hand. It threw the piece of railroad track off of the bench that it was sitting on top of. Yeah, it was just a mess. And the cutoff disc just like exploded. It shattered. It sent pieces of it everywhere. So yeah, Hunter was absolutely right. That angle grinder did almost kill me. Yeah, and that's experience. That's just experience. Obviously, I'm never going to do that again. And I'm glad that it didn't go as badly as it could have. But that just goes, that kind of goes toward the skills that you should know. If a piece of that, if that angle grinder had kicked back and, sent that spinning disc into my hand or into my arm, or if a shard of it had hit my arm or something like that, I would know how to take care of it at least until I got to the ER, and have a medical professional take care of it further. And obviously, if I didn't have those first aid skills, I'd probably be calling an ambulance and sitting there bleeding until they got there. Luckily, that didn't happen, but I'm just saying if it had, I would know how to deal with that sort of thing. So yeah, it's just super useful to know these kind of skills. But yeah, I would love to hear what you guys think in the YouTube comments. Yeah, I'm just going to do it for the YouTube portion of this. So comment skills that you think are super useful, people that you think would be super, super useful to know or know about, brands of just things that you really, really love, music that you really like listening to. I want to start listening to a lot of new and different music. So yeah, anything that I've talked about in this podcast so far, by the way, if you're still listening, thumbs up to you. Because I know this was a little bit ranty, but yeah, anything, brands, people, skills worth knowing, all of that sort of stuff. Put them in the YouTube comments below. I'm going to be reading as many of them as I can. I don't know how many comments I'm going to get on this video, let's be honest. But I will read all of the ones that are there. So yeah, you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. It is Monday right now, so I actually have to edit as soon as I'm done with this to get this podcast posted on schedule, unlike last week's podcast. So yeah. You've been listening to Sidewalk Confessionals. My name is Jeremy. That's not my outro. You've been listening to Sidewalk Confessionals. Happy listening and have a nice day.